Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena,
And I'm Bjorn.
and this is Vikings React. Have you ever been watching a show about Vikings and wondered what is true and what is not? Well, on this channel, we take a look at some of your favorite Viking TV shows and take an in-depth look at their historical accuracy.
Who are we to decide or say anything on the matter? Well, she has a camera, and I'm very strongly opinionated. Last we left off, we were watching Season 6, Episode 1 of Vikings. Today, we're going to be adventurous. We're going to watch Season 6, Episode 2 of Vikings. The episode's called The Prophet, so I'm excited, because then we can go further into apparently one of my favorite Rus Vikings. Oleg. I only knew him as Helgi, so I got him mixed up. I didn't talk about him last episode. Because in my head, he is Helgi, which is apparently his Old Norse name. But then his Slavic, Rus Viking name is Oleg. So I didn't talk about him last time. I didn't realize it was the same person. I forgot.
Yeah.
Spaced. At least the ships look nice.
What's that?
At least the ships look nice.
The ships do look nice.
That doesn't, though.
Succeed. Iceland. That's what we call it, because in winter, the fjords fill with ice floes. But otherwise, the weather is fine. And since then, we have made progress. We've harvested the first crops. Other settlers have come to join us, and I feel optimistic that we shall succeed like Floki wanted to. I am here to see Björn.
So on the topic of how Iceland was named.
Yeah, so supposedly, when the first Viking settler went to Iceland, they named it Iceland because they could see, the little, not little, but the chunks of ice, floating down, all throughout the, the bays and fjords and everything like that from the glaciers in the area. So that's fair. We also go on to explain, Reykjavik, the capital city. We knew this from beforehand, but they mentioned it when we went there a couple of years ago. That again, the same guy, when he came into Reykjavik, they named it that because of the steam vents rising up from the area.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it was Reykja, is what it's called in Icelandic. So that's how they named the capital city and everything like that too. So that's so
pretty
far
accurate.
so good.
Why would your first decision be to go on a foreign adventure?
So are they doing Glima there, or is that something else?
I think it's supposed to be Glima. I can't really see too much. It just was a dude flip.
Yeah.
Another guy. So
Yeah.
it could very well be Glima. We might see a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to watch a little bit first before we say anything
You
about
fought
it.
with us to regain Kattegat. What kind of king would turn a blind eye to such obligation? Just makes me glad I'm not king. What do you say, sir? I don't say anything. You have to have an opinion. Why?
Hey, there's a girl I like.
I don't know. I don't know.
So a little bit. A little bit.
There she is.
I see I must make up my own mind.
It's still not a totally accurate dress, but it's way closer
Oh, yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah, way better. Show the wrestling.
I am trying to recruit new settlers. I don't care who they are, as long as they're prepared to work hard.
Okay.
So that is a form of Glima that they're doing.
Yeah, so first off, I would not recommend doing it on a wooden floor.
Yeah, no. You're gonna get hurt.
That's going to hurt a bit. I do it outside, in a place clear of rocks.
Sometimes.
From experience.
Sometimes.
No, yeah, so that's a good call. It's called Glima, which is a form of Viking Age wrestling. The form that they were doing is actually practiced in modern day Iceland. It's their form of Glima. It's like sport Glima. And they actually do it not in like the Olympic Games, but like the Icelandic Games, I think. It's like a national sport. But it's like there's two holds. So like when you square up, it's a little bit more formal. When you square up against each other, it's like you grab around by the waist, like a belt by the waist, and like a belt on the thigh, and you use those two holds to try to like manipulate and throw your opponent off the ground and like get him on the ground without yourself being there. Viking Age Glima, like the traditional older style, it's a little bit more freeform. There was sport and combat Glima, so it could be used as like a martial art in the midst of combat. You know, if you lost your weapon or something like that, or you just like ended up grappling with a guy and like took him to the ground, basically. But the whole objective of it was to basically be able to pin your opponent on the ground and back away from them without them being able to grab onto you still. So it was very aggressive. But that quick sequence that we saw, like you could see like he had like his hand like right around like the waist of his belt and then like threw him basically like that. And it's really cool to see.
And also just the fact that he backed away right away.
Yeah, exactly.
They know
like
what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like he like made sure to like kind of throw him as much as he could and get him on the ground and get away before he could get an arm around his leg or something and work his way back up. So that was cool.
That's fun.
That was a good touch. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
Just not on the wooden floor.
Just not on a wooden floor.
The truth is, Loki seemed to grow tired of being the leader of a settlement that was not working.
There is one more thing. I once heard a story about a wanderer who sailed west. Probably to the west of your Iceland.
Just one more quick thing. Important feature with like some more like combat Glima and stuff like that, or more like dangerous versions of it. There are some attestations in like written accounts where like you'd wrestle and one of the main kind of features for some of the Glima styles was actually like a rock that you'd wrestle around, and the whole object was actually to be able to like break the person over the rock. So it was like a fatal move basically. So you could really die. And there was also a version that was basically water Glima, which is just Glima in a river or like in a lake or by the ocean side or something. And the whole object was, again, to get the person on the ground basically, but to like pin them under the water until they submitted. And it was very possible that you could just drown.
That's brutal.
It's very brutal. Yeah, it was really dangerous.
Did they do that for sport?
Yeah, so they did it for sport. They did it for like leisure activity, and they also did it for competition. Vikings were huge into competing and like shows of strength and things like that. All right.
Cool.
So I wanted to say the last part.
Yep.
They said that he sighted a beautiful, uninhabited land.
What?
Okay, what is that?
What do you think of these eastern puppets?
Видит яко тут жена, а не едина. Дабы воистину жена его. Красная.
I'm just gonna say right now, they're switching to a more modern form of Russian here because I can definitely understand more now.
Yeah.
Than I did in the
You were
very
speaking
first
like
episode.
an old Russian version.
I wasn't sure if it was an older form of Russian or what exactly it was. I could pick out like one word here, one word there, but I don't really speak it as much as I used to. So I could just be missing a lot of words, but I can definitely understand this way better than what I understood in the first episode. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed it.
Or maybe they didn't. Maybe it's just the words. I
Maybe.
don't know. Just wanted to point that out.
Good note.
Неверная. Ярости, печали и горести наполняется вся. Любя.
Who is that supposed to be?
I think it's foreshadowing.
I have to go to Novgorod,
Novgorod.
the old capital of Rus. My brother lives there. I need to talk to him. I told you I have family business. Then I can concentrate on building a fleet and raising an army.
So, fun fact about Novgorod, which took me a while to actually work out. It's constructed of two words, right? Novy and Gorod. Novgorod. Novy is new in Russian. Gorod is city. They were so inventive that they named the city New City.
I mean, they just got excited about it. Quick thing about puppets. What the?
I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, we have some examples of like toys that the Vikings had, which you think are like children's toys. They're like little model ships and like horses and stuff like that found. But this with like the I don't know what to call
With
them.
the moving parts.
With like the moving parts and like the modern Eastern design and like that red light that you can buy like online on Amazon for like $20 to like put in your room of like a 14-year-old girl, and like the dudes moving the puppets like all dressed in black to like blend in with the shadows. Like that's not nope. This is modern.
That
this
seems
is
a little much.
This is contemporary art. This is contemporary theater. They could have figured out a better way to allude to his backstory.
Yeah, but what part of his backstory is that specifically?
The history Vikings part of the backstory that they're going to introduce to us.
Oh. Not the actual backstory.
No.
Because that makes no sense.
No, because we know about his actual backstory. We know a bit about Oleg.
Right.
He's a dope guy. He was really cool.
He's intense.
He's so intense. Do you want to go first about Oleg? We're going to get into Oleg here, I think.
Well, do we want to talk about it now, or do we want to like let it unfold a little bit?
I'll let you be the judge of that.
Yeah, so when it comes to Oleg, I guess we can talk a little bit about some of his conquests, because last episode when it ended, we didn't really talk too much about it.
Yeah, we didn't really get into the character of Oleg.
We got very confused and lost in what was even happening.
Yeah, I got sidetracked by the hot air balloon.
Yeah, the hot air balloons. But as a historical figure, or at least what we know of him as was written down, he was basically a conqueror. He conquered, he went and he conquered different lands, including Constantinople. And it really doesn't make sense that he was going back to Kattegat. I guess from the point of wanting to conquer a place, it kind of does, but from the point of it's this small little town.
Yeah, historically speaking,
really
I don't think he
doesn't.
would have known what Kattegat was.
Yeah.
I don't think at all.
He wouldn't have gone that far west.
No,
I
and
don't think.
he didn't go that far west.
Right.
He pretty much stuck to the that Slavic Eastern trade route. Up and down the Volga,
Exactly.
the Black Sea with Constantinople. That was his main kind of thing.
Yeah, because he wanted to stay with the trade routes, essentially. He
Yeah.
wanted to oversee them.
Yeah, I mean that's where he was from. That's where his power was, and that's where the most profit could be found. That's where the most glory could be won, kind of. So like looking into it, Helgi's one of my Helgi. Oleg, his old Norse name is Helgi. I'm doing it again. I'm mixing it up. It was one of like my favorite Rus Vikings ever. He's just such a fascinating character, and I tell his story all the time. When we go to immersion events and reenactments and Ren fairs and stuff, it's just one of the coolest little things. So like he led the Rus after Rurik, who was one of like the first, I think, Slavic Rus leaders in the area.
He was the one that basically took over Kiev.
Yeah. So he took over Kiev, and then Oleg, the wise, or Oleg the the far-sighted, kind of took over command after him as like an envoy. But one of like his most famous stories is he was renegotiating the trade terms with Constantinople, and Constantinople didn't want to do business with them because they thought Rurik had just died. They thought Kiev was weak, so they just said, "You get out. We don't want to do business with you anymore. We're tired of you." And he warned them. I was like, if you don't renegotiate this and don't renew this contract, this treaty that we have with us to trade, you will suffer dearly for it. And Constantinople at the time had never been conquered. The design of the city is actually really unique because they actually had two walls that surrounded the city. So they had one interior wall and one exterior wall, about like 20 or something feet high. So even if you got through one wall, and got past that first line of defense, you
to
still had to then go through a secondary wall and do the same breach again. And like siege warfare is not only difficult in general at the time, but especially for Vikings, they didn't have siege weapons. They didn't know how to lay siege, really.
They fought on shield walls most of the time.
And they fought on shield walls. They did lightning raids, surprise attacks. You even see it with Paris too. Like they did do siege warfare. They absolutely did. Occasionally when they were forced into it, but they much preferred to avoid that at all cost, really, because it was high fatality. It was high casualty ratings, and it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't profitable for them. But so. Oleg couldn't look weak, and he needed to devise his plan. So he was ruminating in his ships for a couple days, trying to come up with a plan. And eventually he decided he and his crew deconstructed some of the ships that they had in their fleet and used the wood to create wheels for the ships. I love this story so much. So they used the extra wood that they took from their ships and created massive wheels for the rest of the fleet, affixed them to the ships, and then hoisted the sails and caught the wind and sailed the ships out of the water onto the land. And it's described in like the Russian chronicles, I think, that the fleet is just flying over this open ground towards Constantinople with Oleg standing at the front of like the lead ship, like up on the prow with his foot raised and his shield held high and his sword at the ready, just this intimidating stance. And the Constantinople people were just mortified at what they were seeing because this magic man, Viking, scary Rus dude with like this side ponytail that they had, like just pulled his ships out of the water and was sailing them over open land. And they were so mortified by this sight because it's something they had never seen before that they threw open their gates and like pleaded him to stop.
And just basically gave up.
And just gave up immediately there. It's the weird, like you would never imagine that. It's the weirdest thing. But it's so cool. It's so cool.
Just the ingenuity of it. And actually that siege is the reason why he got the nickname that he has.
Right.
The Wise, the Farsighted, that's why he was called that, is because of that siege, because he was able to come up with something like that, and it basically won a battle that was never even had.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. There's going to be a part 2 coming out a little bit later, so hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can be notified of it. And while you're waiting, if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, go check that out right now. We will leave links in the description and probably somewhere around here.
I did it.